This week, the HPT crowns a champion from the land of 10,000 lakes. We are at the Canterbury Park Card Casino in the great state of Minnesota, just outside of the Twin Cities. Hundreds of hopefuls sat down on day one. Dozens continued on to day two. And as always, our Elite Six sat down at our televised final table. Now we are down to 4 players, and the championship prize of almost $120,000 is in their sights. Our dominating chip leader has been in control the whole time, but the other 3 are picking up momentum and are hoping to topple his mountainous stack.
They come from all walks of life, each with a story to tell. All they need is a chip and a chair. It's an open casting call for those who love the game. This ain't your weekend home game. This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama, cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Welcome to the HPT. This week in the land of 10,000 lakes, we are at Canterbury Park Card Casino in Shakopee, Minnesota, just outside of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I'm Chris Hansen, and by my side is a man who looks ravishing in a swimsuit. He is Fred Bevel, and Fred, once again, our friends here in the state of Minnesota have built a huge prize pool.
Over $473,000 in this prize pool, with almost $120,000 going to our next HPT champion. My friend, that is life-changing money. Hundreds started on day one, and as always, the Elite Six sat down at our televised final table. Now we are down to 4, and the pressure is heating up as we get closer to the next champion.
Leaving us in 6th place was Dan Conway. Dan woke up with wired aces and got it all in against Eric Worry's pocket jacks. It looked like Dan would be getting that much-needed double up to move on and get back into contention until the flop delivered the case jack for Eric, giving him a set and eliminating Dan in 6th place with a little over $23,000.
5th place went to Ed Janicic. Ed had been card dead most of the final table and finally got it all in with King 9, only to run into Naz's wired 9s. No king came for Ed, but he did leave the HPT with over $28,000.
And the man with the big stack right now, as it has been this entire final table, is Naz. Let's meet our chip leader and the rest of the players and then get right to the action.
Well, my name is Nazar, and people here call me Naz. I'm currently a student. I'm getting my MBA in organizational management.
My name's Eric Worry from Chanhassen, Minnesota, so right locally. I've worked in the network marketing industry. I've done that for 24 years.
Dr. Gary Lambert, Quincy, Illinois. Chip stacks just right at 900,000. I'm a chiropractor and a recreational poker pro.
Yeah, I'm Paul Ratajczak. I live in Champlin, Minnesota. I'm in software sales, and I have about 1.265 million in chips.
Well, my strategy at the final table really is not to have a strategy right now. I don't know what the other guys have planned out. They're all pretty much anywhere from short stack to like a little over short stack. So my strategy is pretty much to play according to how they play. I woke up at 5 in the morning today because I had a test to take. So I finished the test at 8 in the morning, and I came right here.
If it's super tight, I'll open it up because I still have enough to cripple 4 out of the other 5 players. If they're normal, what they've been playing, then I'll just wait. I've still got enough. I don't need to go crazy. I got enough to be able to pick my spot and get it in good. So
Every final table has its own kind of little makeup or personality. We have a very mature table. A lot of the younger, more aggressive style players, as we all know, the game's changing monthly, were eliminated early on. So we have a very mature table. I was almost kicked out of the casino this week. Well, here's what happened. A lot of people bring lucky rabbits and coins as card protectors. I bring my wife, Kelly. So I got her on top of the table, on top of my cards, and the floor came over and he said, this can't happen. And he said, you put her up there one more time, you're gonna have to leave. We got past that, I took my lucky coin out and we moved on.
My biggest accomplishment in my life is obviously my daughters, my twin daughters who are 8 years old and my 6-year-old, Claudia, Liza, and Olivia, that coupled with my wife. I mean, they are really my support system. They're kind of like your happy place, if you will. When it gets rough in the tournament, or it gets, you know, kind of, you get irritated with how somebody's playing, or, you know, you feel like you're playing well but you're still not accumulating chips. It's always nice to have that place, and I think that's kind of the stemming success and how you can play this game and get somewhere with it. So
Now that we've met the players, let's meet the amounts of money that they're all hoping to walk away with tonight. And Fred, the one that they all want, $118,000 for first place.
Everybody's going home with at least $36,000. Not a bad run for the Canterbury Card Casino, the largest poker tournament in Minnesota State history.
And Nas is our chip leader. He has been since the start of day 2 at this final table. As you can see, he has increased his chip stack by 1.8 million in chips. It's just amazing the kind of run that he is on, and you can see there in front of Nas his rather large accumulation of chips.
He's been getting the cards, and he's been playing well. Tough combination to beat. Action is going to start on Gary Lambert, the chiropractor from Quincy, Illinois.
We also will call him Doc throughout the night.
I'm going to fold. I love it when you say that.
And we're going to call him folding now. Over to Nas. He will fold. This is Eric Worre from Champlin, Minnesota. And Eric looks down at Queen Jack.
He's not going to do it. It's like, how much is it?
And Eric is going to raise it up to $90,000 with Queen Jack offsuit. And this is the short stack Paul. He's a software salesman, 40 years old, has his beautiful wife on the rail, twin daughters at home.
So here we go. The blinds are raised and called.
Okay, with that, 2 players.
So we'll see our first flop of tonight between these 2 players, and the flop is 3-3-7.
No help for either of these players right now. Paul is ahead with king high.
Eric, the original raiser, first to act.
He's going to check. Let's see if Paul takes that as an open door. He does not. He's going to check behind as well.
Paul's our short stack at this final table. And the turn is a queen, and now it's Eric that pulls ahead.
We start with Eric in seat number 4.
And Eric getting some chips ready. He is going to fire $150,000.
Or no, sorry, 150.
150.
And don't really see any reason for Paul to make this call here.
Can't flop anything. Here you go. Good hand.
Paul will fold. Eric's going to show his pair of queens, and he's going to take down this hand as we move towards an HPT championship here tonight at Canterbury Card Casino. Welcome back to the HPT with Fred Bevel. I'm Chris Hansen, and we are just outside of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, in Shakopee, Minnesota at Canterbury Card Casino. And Nas continues with the chip lead at 6.8 million. Next person who leaves the final table walks with 36,000 tonight. Third place goes home with 42,000. And Fred, that's when things really get serious. Second place tonight, 67,000 on the HPT.
And we saw from that chip graphic that Paul only has 11 big blinds, right on the cusp of the danger zone. Not a lot of room to play.
This is our chip leader, Nas. He's a 29-year-old student from Mankato, Minnesota. Mankato, about an hour or so out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area.
Short stack Paul wakes up with ace-5 offsuit. This could be it. Ace high in a four-handed game. Might as well.
However, the razor was the big stack, so Paul decides it's not his time, and a wise decision once we see that Gary Lambert has ace-king.
And it looks like Gary is going to raise it up, makes it a big one, $385,000 to go.
285 more.
285 more. Sorry, no, with 2, that's right, 285 on top.
All right, so Nas is going to make the call with 9-10 offsuit.
Okay, the call has been made by your 2-seed. And Gary, if I could please see it.
Big pot pre-flop here, 800,000 plus in the middle.
Flop is queen, queen, 8. Gary's all in. Nas with just a gut shot straight draw with that flop.
Gary Lambert putting the pressure on the chip leader.
8-15.
It'd be tough to put Gary on a queen here. Wouldn't probably go all in with that kind of a board texture after flopping trips. If Nas puts him on an 8 and he figures he has 2 overcards, he might just do it.
Nas has stayed out of trouble this entire final table.
1.6 million in the pot right now.
A lot of poker players like to say that if you're thinking long, you're thinking wrong. Usually best to just go with that first gut instinct that you have and use that as your play. But in this case, Nas makes the correct decision and folds.
That was a tough fold for Nas. He could easily afford it. He had a gut shot straight draw and 2 live cards, and I'm sure he knew he had the 2 live cards.
All right, next hand we'll start with short stack Paul, 5-10 offsuit. That's folded as he continues to ride that short stack like they do the ponies here at Canterbury. They also have a great racetrack. Watching the ponies run.
Gary's going to limp in from the button with King 10 offsuit.
Sneaky.
Limping from the button. Not a fan of that.
Nas calls the big blind, and Eric in the big blind will check his option. Now, if you're the short stack, Paul, this is the hand you would love to be involved in because there's a lot of money that is out there going to the flop. The flop is Jack 6-5.
This flop misses everybody. Right now, Nas is ahead with ace high. He checks. Action's on Eric.
Eric is going to check, and now over to Doc Lambert. He will check, and so we'll see a turn. And the turn peels off at 10.
Well, both Gary and Eric turn second pair here, and Nas and Gary both turn a flush draw. Gary by far the best of it right now with the 10 and the king of spades kicker.
Eric bets 90,000. Gary quickly calls, and just as quickly, Nas folds and gets out of the way. So we're heads up now with Eric and Gary. And the river is a 9 of spades. That gives Gary the king high flush, and that gives Eric little to no chance of winning this pot. He checks over to Gary.
And Gary, not so quick to check. He's going to try to get a little value on the river here. Makes it 150,000 to go.
And Eric is going to fold.
How did that river come?
Well, you were crushed before the river made me. Going dancing.
Oh, he's exactly right. Gary did have him crushed. He's not lying to him. Whether or not Eric believes that, that's another thing. All right, Gary will start this hand.
I'm going to go to 100,000.
Gary's going to raise it up with ace-6 offsuit.
It's 100K over to Nas. He folds. Now to Eric. 6 deuce out of the small blind. No, thank you. Over to the short stack. 8-5 of diamonds. Is this the spot to do it?
I doubt it. I really doubt it. We've seen him fold better hands than this.
Call.
But he does want to see a flop. Only 60,000 to go to see a
Why
flop.
are you so selfish? Why is it about you?
And here we go. The flop comes 4-3-5. Paul makes a pair of 5, so he's ahead, and he goes all in. Back to Gary.
Well, Gary has an open-ended straight draw. It's going to be pretty tough to get him off of this with only 315,000 to make the call to eliminate a player.
1, 2.
I call.
Gary makes the call.
Not fair.
And so it's a made hand versus a draw on the flop. We still have the turn and river to go. And after the turn and river, will Paul be around to see another hand?
God, the card dead. Come on, baby.
Well, Gary here with 2 live cards and an open-ended straight draw pretty much cut the deck in half and pick a card.
Just paint.
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 And the turn is a 7, one of the cards that Paul did not want to see. But Fred, now there is one particular card he wants to see.
The 6 will give Paul a bigger straight. Otherwise, he is on the rail in 4th place.
3 6s left in the deck. Can't he find one? The river is another 7, and that will be it. Paul rode that short stack as long as he could, trying to find the right spot to double or triple up. And in the end, he will be eliminated in 4th place.
Can't do anything with the double. Pretty card dead most of the day today. The last hand, I figured, well, didn't make sense to shove and see if I could flop something, so I speculated, caught the top pair, shoved with it. I didn't know what he had, but you know, obviously I had to go with top pair with my stack size. Just didn't work out.
The pressure is mounting, Fred. Who is going to take down the biggest tournament in Minnesota poker history? Come back to find out. This is the HPT. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. Beautiful card casino here. A huge poker room, biggest one in the state of Minnesota. And Fred, the biggest stack at our final table belongs to Nas.
Nas with 6.5 million in chips. Gary is next to him with a little over 2 million in chips. And as we can see, it is all Nas right now with 65% of the chips in play. But the other two players, plenty of room to play. The short stack still with 35 big blinds.
And he's got Big Slick looking at Ace King.
Raise.
Eric is going to raise to 150,000. Gary's got 9-10 in the small blind and will fold. And now to Nas. Nas with King Jack of diamonds. Definitely a playable hand, three-handed, and is the big stack.
Well, there's a reason it's called the rookie hand in poker. It's a good-looking hand, but it's easily dominated. We can see it is right now. Nas only with one live card and the diamonds going into the flop.
And the flop is 4, deuce, 8, just one diamond there.
Eric ahead with Ace King. Nas checks over to him. Let's see if Eric fires a continuation bet here.
I think I would like a check by Eric. Maybe induce Nas to bluffing on the turn. What card is coming on the turn that you really could be worried about?
Well, do you want to face a bluff when you don't have a made hand? He is going to bet, and Nas is going to call.
All right, so we got the chips in anyway as we go to the turn. And the turn is a 6 of hearts. Now let's see if Nas wants to bluff at this pot. He does not.
He checks, but let's see if that smooth call slows Eric down. It does. So Nas's plan worked. He's getting a free river card.
And the river is an ace. And Nas is first. He will check again.
And now here's where Eric should probably go for a little value.
640,000 in the pot. Why not try about 225?
I'd go a little less than that. Make it 150.
Well, let's not get ridiculous. The bet is 200,000.
It's a valiant attempt to get value here, but when Nas has absolutely nothing but king high, I don't think Eric is going to get the action.
I don't think there's any way here that Nas moves into that house on Value Street.
Call has been made.
But he is going to make the call. Very surprising from Nas. Hasn't made a lot of mistakes, you know, Fred. That's not a huge mistake. Given the situation, I think he just put Eric on a bluff that he was going to get him with king high.
Or maybe Nas was just going to look him up anyway to see what kind of a hand Eric was playing.
All right, king 6 for Nas on this hand. After his first misstep, I guess you could say, at this final table.
Make it 150.
Gets back to business with a raise to 150,000 with king 6. It's jack 7 for Eric. That gets folded. Over to Gary Lambert.
Over 1 million chips went into Eric's stack on that last hand. Much needed.
And Gary is going to call the raise.
Seats 1 and 2.
And so Gary and Nas will be heads up in this flop. The flop is 9-9 ace.
What a flop for Gary Lambert. He flops trip nines. And of course he's going to check over to the aggressive chip leader. And he is doing exactly what Gary wants him to do. He's going to fire 150,000.
Fred, I know we are in the land of 10,000 lakes. A lot of fishing, very popular sport here in the state of Minnesota. And sometimes you just kind of let the fish take the bait and run with it a little bit, tire them out.
That's what Gary's doing here. He's just smooth calling.
Exactly. The hook is definitely in Nas's mouth. Gary doesn't want to bring him to the surface quite yet. Here comes the turn. It's a 10 of diamonds.
Well, that changes the texture a little bit. I don't think Gary's going to check and let Nas do the bidding for him again. He is going to bet. This time he fires 150,000.
Gary doing a bit of reeling, getting Nas closer to the boat. Get the net.
Naj with just king high right now. This could be his chance to get away from it.
And Nas does get away. Gary doesn't reel in a whopper. It's not a state record fish at that point, but Fred, it'll definitely make for a good meal.
Exact same pair I folded.
And at this
you,
point, any
Eric,
chips that you
earlier
take
on
off
when
of
you made it
Nas
480,
simply closes
I had
the
exact
gap,
same
and that's
pair I
all
folded
these
twice
players
the
are trying to
same
do at
penny.
this point.
I was looking at
One
your
way
picture.
or another,
Oh,
Nas'
gotcha.
first act on this hand, he will fold.
Got all my kids.
Now back to
birthstones.
Eric, as we are playing the largest
I have any
poker
more
tournament
kids than I'm
in
running out of
Minnesota state history.
Raise 150.
And of course, it happens here at Canterbury, one of the most popular card rooms in all of Minnesota.
This is the place to play when you're in the land of 10,000 lakes, no doubt about it.
Eric makes it 150,000 with ace-5. Gary calls the bet as blinds are up to 25 and 50,000. And the flop is Jack, Queen, Jack. Another pretty good flop for Gary.
Gary's flopped top two pair, and he's going to check behind Eric, so a free turn a coming.
Here comes the turn. It's a 3 of diamonds.
Eric isn't going to put anything into this pot. Gary's going to fire a bet of 150,000, and it looks like, yeah, Eric's going to quickly fold.
Gary shows that he had the
Kick was
winner.
my issue.
And we've got more poker coming up on a battle for 118K when we return. Welcome back to the HPT. I'm Chris Hansen. He's Fred Bevel. Time for our pro tip of the week on the HPT. And what better pro to get tips from than from Phil Hellmuth himself? Tonight, the 12-time WSOP bracelet winner discusses proper bet sizes.
Proper bet sizing is super important. I've been accused of not properly sizing my bets this last couple of years. And you know what? There's some truth in it. So I looked into some proper bet sizing because I like the concept. And the more I play poker, the more I play no limit, the more I agree that I haven't been sizing my bets properly. It's hard when you're a part-time player or you're not playing all the time to size it properly. Now that I'm playing no limit hold'em a lot the last few months, a lot of no limit hold'em, I'm saying, oh yeah, you know what, they're right. I mean, when you raise it up with ace king and it comes king 9 deuce, and you check or you bet 20% of the pot or 10% of the pot, or maybe you have pocket kings when it comes king 9 deuce, it's almost a tell that you're not betting very much, that you're strong. Go ahead and fire 60% of the pot when you hit it. They're going to call you or they're not going to call you. But if you're just going to make these tiny little bets, you're not really getting the maximum, and you're actually sending a signal that you could be really strong. So I like 60% pot size bets when you hit your hand or when you're bluffing.
Well, Fred, you should definitely pay attention to the 12-time bracelet winner. When he's handing out free tips, you're probably going to want to write them down, or at least just don't forget them. Nas right now is 60% of the chips in play, still plenty healthy, but it's been Gary who has made the biggest step forward since we last checked in on our chip count. And Gary is on the button and ready to act first in this hand. Blinds at 25 and 50,000 with the 5K ante. And he will fold. Now to Nas in the small blind. The student from Mankato, Minnesota looks down at ace queen of diamonds. Says he's going to use his winnings to pay tuition. Boo. Boo.
Doyle Brunson's least favorite hand in poker is ace queen, but of course, three-handed, pretty powerful.
That's funny. My least favorite hand in poker is king 4 because I usually have to fold it. Other than that, I'm ready to go, but I hate king 4.
That might be the only hand you've ever folded. Eric is going to make the call with queen jack suited.
And the flop is king 9-7.
Nas still ahead with ace high. Eric has picked up a gut shot straight draw. Both players check.
Turn, please. Turns a jack.
Well, now Eric pulls ahead by pairing the jack, but now Nas has the gut shot straight draw. And again, both players check.
And here comes the river. It's another jack. Nas first to act.
Eric now has trip jacks.
Nas acting like this pot is poison ivy, wants no part of it, staying very far away.
And Eric's going to fire 150,000, and I don't see Nas making this call again. He's already looked him up once. And apparently he is going to look him up a second time.
Queen Jack.
Last time Nas made the call with king high. This time he makes it with ace high. I don't want to say those chips are gifted over to Eric, but at the same time, I think both those situations, there wasn't a real big need for Nas to make the call. Maybe thought he was telling the truth the first time, and now I'm going to catch him bluffing the second time. I have to admit, I have tried that theory a time or two.
Well, this is a good hand to wake up to for Nas to get some of those chips back. It's wired jacks.
Raise.
All right, Nas raises it up to 150,000. Now he needs some action. King 4 for Eric. Will not oblige. And now to Gary, Doc Lambert.
Doc is going to make the call with queen 8.
2 players. Seats 1 and 2.
All right, here we go. Let's see the flop. It's 4, queen 10. Gary first to act.
Well, Gary pulls ahead of Nas's wired jacks, but there's 2 clubs on the board, and the texture does have a straight draw out there, so I don't think he's going to check. Again, I am wrong.
Gary does check. Trying to get the original raiser to bet again. He does so. It's the same bet. It's 150,000. Back to Gary.
And Gary does check call here.
All right, here comes the turn. The turn is an 8.
And now Gary has 2 pair, but with queen 8, you don't really want to see 2 pair when there's a 10 on the board. Both players check. Off to the river we go.
And the river. It's another queen, so now Gary's got a full boat, and he checks again. Please, he's saying, Nas, please put some chips out there. 640,000. I'd like to see probably half that pot being bet. With 2 queens on the board, that actually might help Gary, because Nas is going to think, oh, I don't think he's got a queen.
250.
Well, the river card being a queen lowers the chances of Gary holding a queen. Gary's played this hand great, I think. I mean, he has really hidden his hand here, and he's gotten the chip leader to fire out 250,000. A check raise seems futile. I don't think Nas would pay off a check raise.
But that's exactly what he's going to do.
Raise now for Gary.
And now he's going to make Nas think about it. And the first thing that he thought is, crap, he's got one of those queens.
560. Raise goes to 560.
310,000 for Nas to make the call. This is a monster pot with almost 1.5 million chips. Nas has paid Eric off twice. Will he now dole out that same favor to Gary?
Well, Gary made a great river raise here. Yep. Of course he's going to call there.
You got
Great
him.
play by Gary here, and yeah, you said it, buddy. He got him.
Shows a queen of diamonds.
Almost 2 million chips going into Gary's stack after that well-played hand, and Nas is going to have to stop the bleeding, or these guys are going to catch up to him.
Oh, no. Nas, what are you going to do? You've dropped down to about 5 million in chips. Oh, no, the humanity. Fred, that is by far the biggest hit to Nas's chip stack we have seen at this final table. He needs to button that chip lead up, or else next thing you know, it's going to be gone.
9-7 is now the holding for Doc Lambert, and he is going to fold and take a breath after that big hand.
Jack 7 in the small blind. A limp in from Nas.
Nas is shifting gears a little bit, I think. We haven't seen him limp much today. And Eric is going to check his option.
And C4. Brent, let's see the flop, please.
And the flop is 5-8 king.
Eric hits middle pair with the 8.
Bet 50.
And Nas is going to bet at him. 50,000 for Eric to continue. Quickly makes the call.
Can I see the turn card?
All right, action on Nas as the 8 comes on the turn.
Gets better and better for Eric Worre now. He's sitting with trip 8s. And he is going to check behind Nas.
What is this, try to trap Nas Day on the HPT? The river is a queen, and just like that, we've got 2 full houses in a row.
This time Nas checks over to Eric, and Eric's going to go to Value Town again, this time firing 150, and this time Nas isn't going for it.
No.
He says 3's enough.
No, yeah, fooled me once, my fault. Fooled me twice, still my fault. Fooled me 3 times, absolutely not. I fold. I am done.
Yeah, it's funny. We go to Las Vegas to support the Starkey Hearing Foundation Athletes for Africa and the HPT event. Well, there's 350 players or something like that, so we both get started. I get knocked out in my traditional 50th place or something. She has 0 chips, and she's still going, still going, still going, still going. She will not push it in. She's got 5 big blinds, 6 big blinds, nothing. Won't push it in, won't push it in, won't push it in. Well, she makes it down, 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 down. She gets to 11 players left. They put her on the TV table, and she cracks aces with her kings. And she ended up making it, in that particular tournament, the top 3 from that event got to the final TV table, and then they added the celebrities, Phil Hellmuth and Steve Martin and a Facebook guy, I still can't pronounce his name. And when we walked out, she said, she looked at me, she said, you know you created a monster now.
Man, what a great weekend that was at the Golden Nugget for the Starkey Hearing Foundation. Fred got to play poker with Phil Hellmuth and Steve Martin, and I got to meet Adrian Peterson. Still haven't washed this hand. And I think I finally identified what that smell is.
Well, look at Nas. He is still the chip leader, but not as dominating. Gary has climbed up to just about 1 million chips away from him. You can see in the green arrow, he's improved by almost 1 million in chips as we continue 3-handed to $118,000 championship here in the land of 10,000 lakes.
Eric Worre is first to act with pocket 3s. He's a network marketing professional from Chanhassen, Minnesota. Just saw his wife featured in that piece. What fun that was at that event. Also, not only the celebrities were there, but just watching the poker player of a lot of these players who hadn't played the game before and watching them play and watching Phil Hellmuth freak out as they played at that final table. Gary calls Eric's raise with suited gap connectors. Nas calls it well with regular connector.
You could hear our rail, excited to see a family pot here.
And now here comes the flop. It's ace 5 jack.
Right now, Eric's pocket 3s are still the best.
Gary checks. Nas checks. Back to Eric in those pocket 3s.
I wouldn't check if I were you, Eric. Oh, he does check, though. Free turn coming.
And the turn is a deuce. I guarantee you Eric still doesn't feel very good about those pocket 3s. He might be happy just to be able to check it all the way down right now if he could. But Gary will not let him be able to do that. He bets $200,000 on the turn. Action on Nas.
And Nas announces a raise with just 8 high. He has no draw, no pair. He's going to make it 700 to go.
Eric folds. Now back to Gary, and he quickly folds. So there you go. Nas picking up a pot. Little resistance there after that bet.
Nas is not messing around. What a play.
Gary looks down at 6 deuce of clubs.
Not a fault.
Away the cards go to the muck. Jack 9 of diamonds for Nas in the small blind. Nas will limp in, and now to Eric. Eric checks his option with 9-6. And so this flop will be heads up with Nas and Eric. The flop is 5-8-10.
Well, Nas has an open-ended straight draw. Eric has a gut shot straight draw.
But Eric doesn't want that gut shot.
You're absolutely right. That 7 gives Nas the bigger straight. So Eric really just drawn to a 6.
Let's go ahead and see.
He does call the flop. And so now here's the turn. It's a 4. Nas first again.
A blank for both players. Nas way ahead here with Jack 9.
I don't know why Nas isn't betting. If he put $50,000 in on the flop, he's for sure going to put in $75,000 or $100,000 on the turn, you would think. But they both check now to the river, and the river is a 9.
Oh, this could be trouble for Eric. Both players hit a pair on the river. Nas is going to fire out 50,000, a nice bet to get paid off with. And Eric does pay him off, and he's going to see that Nas had him crushed the whole way.
I know it's not a big pot, but it's a win for Nas, and that's something that he hasn't done much here in the last couple of hands. The chips have been sliding away from him, finally now moving back in an inward versus outward direction.
And Eric's probably very thankful he didn't hit that 7, or he'd be broke right now. Eric will be first to act on this hand. He's just going to go ahead and throw it into the muck.
Over to Gary. Gary celebrates almost $500,000 in career poker winnings.
He's just going to limp in with wired 4s.
Oh, tricky now.
Nas is going to check his option with king 6.
Let's go ahead and see the flop.
And here's the flop. It is 8, 10, 6.
Nas outflops Gary's small pair. He hits the 6. Gary's going to check. Nas says, no, sir. It's going to cost you $50,000 to see a turn.
All of a sudden, the bets coming from Nas have been the smallest bets you can make. Just 50,000 here with Gary.
It gets even better for Nas. The turn gives him 2 pair.
Gary checks over to Nas. A little bit bigger than 50,000 this time. This time it's 150,000.
150 is the bet by the 2 seed and a
Fold.
And Gary is going to say goodbye to the pocket 4s. I think that Gary figured out no matter what he bet out of the small blind, Nas was probably going to make the call out of the big blind. So that's probably why he just limped in there, but it ends up costing him some chips.
Gary, you will be first.
I better look. Good idea.
Gary looks down this time at pocket 5s. They're getting better, but slowly.
150.
Pocket 4s, he limps. Pocket 5s, he makes it 150 to go.
Apparently we found his pain threshold. Nas gets out of the way. It's ace-9 of clubs for Eric.
I'm all in.
And Eric's going to play for all of them. He is going to shove. And hey, Doc, why don't you quit texting? You got it all in here.
Hey, Doc. Sir, action's on you.
Call.
He makes the call with wired 5s.
Call by Gary.
And Eric is at risk. He's got 2 overcards. He's got the clubs. He's going to need to get a little lucky here for he and that pocket square to stay at this final table.
Again, Gary in the lead with his pocket 5s going up against ace of clubs, 9 of clubs. Can I please see the flop?
Here we go. The flop is 3, king, king.
Oh, sorry.
No club, no ace, or no 9 for Eric. He falls further behind.
Come on.
Still 2 live cards. The flush dream is gone.
And the turn is another king.
Come on. Ace or 9. Nothing changed.
So an ace or a
king
9
ace, king
or
9,
the
ace,
case
king
king are Eric Worry's
Ace,
outs.
king 9. Come on. Come on, Connie.
7 of spades. 7 of spades.
Be there.
And the river. It is a 6. And that is going to do it. Eric Worry will be leaving the final table here at Canterbury Card Casino in 3rd place with $42,000 in cash. And we're ready for Heads Up Poker.
Well, I got card dead after having pretty good cards. And I figured if I got down to about 800,000, I was going to have to pick a spot, make a move. It was a lot of fun. You know, people were saying, are you going to be disappointed? You know, I was happy when I cashed. I was happy when I made the top 10. I happy when I made the TV table, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. It was a great time, so fun.
2 days worth of poker has now come down to Gary and Nas. We've got Heads Up Poker for $118,000 when we come back next on the HPT. Thanks for returning to the HPT as we battle it out for $118,000 here tonight at Canterbury Card Casino in Shakopee, Minnesota.
Well, as you can see, Gary not too far behind Nas, who has been the chip leader since the beginning of day 2. This is still anybody's match.
Yeah, they're pretty square right now in chips. Nas has moved over to seat number 5. Gary's moved to seat number 2.
And Nas with Jack 3 is going to make it $130,000 to go.
Has Gary had those tattoos the entire final table?
He has.
Am I just seeing those for the first time?
Nope.
I'm going to call.
And Gary's going to make the call with King 4.
Never been a fan of exposed tattoos at the poker table because you never know what someone might be able to pick up as a tell-off. And here's the flop. It is 4-5-9 rainbow.
Well, Gary hits the best of this. He flops the pair of 4s.
200K is the bet. Over to Nas.
By Gary. 200,000.
Second place tonight, $67,000. First place, $118,000. As now we are closing in on the biggest poker payday in Minnesota poker history. Button is on Nas. He's going to be first. And Nas looks down at 10-3 of spades.
Nas plans on using his prize money for tuition.
That's what we do here in the HPT, educate America, one way or another. And the flop is 4-4 deuce. What a flop for Gary.
Gary hits trip 4s, heads up here. Both players check.
The turn is a 9 of diamonds. Gary is just hoping that Nas has got something, anything. Please have something.
Well, Gary can't let the turn go by. He's going to bet 100, and unfortunately, Nas didn't have anything. Gary's not going to get any more money out of Nas than that.
Quickly on to the next hand. Nas is first to act. He makes it 130,000 with King 3 of spades. And over to Doc Lambert.
400.
Doc makes it 400,000 with King Queen
I'm all over the
offsuit.
place. Just 400.
Now goes to 400,000.
It's now 400,000, 270K for Nas to call. Nas widely considered a very good poker player here at Canterbury. This is his home place for poker.
A little of probably 1.3 or something like that, 1.4.
Nas getting an inventory on Mr. Lambert's stack.
4. Yeah, more than that.
And you're right about Nas's reputation here at Canterbury. No one is surprised to see Nas in this position, heads up for a $118,000 championship. He's going to make the call.
I am a bit surprised, though, that he did make that call.
They're suited.
And he is in position. Okay, now that we've taken care of all the sucker reasons to call. The flop is 6-8-8 with a couple of spades.
I'm all in.
And Gary moves all in.
Ooh, this could be untimely for Gary here. Nas has the flush draw.
Nas is going to make the call. There's no doubt about it. This could be the HPT event, the biggest one ever in Minnesota poker history.
About. You got a gist of it.
3-4.
Oh, okay.
Well, Gary is hoping that Nas hit none of this, and the fact that Nas is in the tank has got to make Gary worry.
I don't see how Nas could help himself.
$1.34 million to call for the championship with the second nut flush draw. Draw being the key word there.
I call.
Uh-oh, I'm going to gamble. I call. Here we go, Fred. The HPT championship comes down to Nas and his draws.
Well, right now, Gary is ahead with the king-queen kicker. Nas has the flush draw.
And the turn is a 4 of spades. That's going to do it. Gary eliminated. And Nas, with the championship in his sights all day long, is able to seal the deal and is our newest HPT champion. Gary Lambert plays a lot of HPT events, and Fred, it's starting to pay off. A second-place finish here for Gary is good enough to not only win him a bunch of money, but also propels him into first place in the race for the HPT Season 8 Player of the Year. Let's go back down to the floor and hear from Gary.
You know what? I feel fine, and anytime you can outlast 331 other people and have a nice weekend, enjoy it, I mean, it's good. You got to lose to appreciate the wins. So now that I lost, I don't have to do that again. I got that out of the way. So it is never a problem losing to a good player. Very, very, very good quality player. So it's just what it is.
Odds are we'll probably run into Gary tomorrow checking out of the hotel and then off to the next stop as he continues to follow the HPT. But Fred, tonight was all about Nas. He got himself into a couple of bad positions early on this evening, but for most of the final table, played perfectly. and now he's got $118,000 to show for his efforts. Let's go back down to the floor to hear from our newest HPT champion.
It's a new experience. It's the first time I play on national TV. I believe it didn't change the way I played. You know, to me, I played the same way I would play. I felt I had control the whole time. I never went on tilt. I did what I wanted to do. And pretty much, you know, the cards helped out at some point. And, you know, you play good, you run good, and that's what it takes to win tournaments.
Another stop on the HPT has produced a record turnout. This one in the state of Minnesota. Biggest poker tournament ever, and we thank you, the fans of the HPT, for making that happen. And again, one more congratulations to Nas, our newest HPT champion. And I think you've got what it takes to play like Nas and win the life-changing money? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com to find out about our upcoming events. For James Larson and Fred Bevel, I'm Chris Hansen. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.